Is that deadline already tomorrow? I will surely lose my job if I don't make it. And who will want a friend without a job? Without friends, life is meaningless. I can already feel the burnout come. I recently started a series concerning definitive action plans for certain archetypes of people. Last time I described gamers and online folks in general. This time it is overthinkers or very emotional people. Not every initial condition will apply to all people, but it will be a great starting point nonetheless. Well, people are individuals after all, but they share similarities. That is undebatable pretty much. But without further ado, let us begin with the typical mental and physical problems. What we see here is more or less an ordered list. We begin with mental problems, and the initial phase the overthinking or emotional person faces, or the initial problems on the mental side are, well, obviously overthinking. Then the resulting negative emotions, because every sensual input, no matter of the five, if it is the five physical senses or the mind, always produces an emotion. And when you think a lot, and consider that humans have a negativity bias, then you end up with lots of negative thoughts, and those produce lots of negative emotions. Those negative emotions often lead to states of anxiety and great stress, and many of those people have validation needs. Those are typical things all people of that, well, kind of natural inclination usually face. The validation need is not always there, but many people have that. And the stress is pretty much ever present for everyone that has negative emotions present, or things like anxiety. On the physical side, there are things like emotional eating, and emotional eating leads to all kinds of problems, like overweight and problems with confidence, for example, also to a weak immune system. The immune system is very much dependent on your physical state of being and on your physical health, and it's also very much influenced by your mental health. So that is a problem too, because people that are stressed all the time also tend to be sick all the time. Further, those people usually exercise not at all, if anything, and as a result have a very low endurance, and in general are kind of unfit and somewhat unhealthy. Remember, we do have an evolutionary duty to move that cannot simply be omitted, which is kind of a shame, but nonetheless we have to play with the cards we have been dealt. There's no way around that. We have to pretty much make sure that we have enough to eat, we have a roof above our head, we have enough to drink, we have some social, well, relationships, some quality social relationships in our life, and we have to move. Simply because those things have always been there in an evolutionary context, and the human, just as any other species, adapts to their surroundings. And something that has always been there will always be a necessity at some point, and we are in that state nowadays. Okay, but what can we do about all of this? Well, for the mental problems, we have a few things we can do. If we have a problem with a loud inner critic or overthinking and negative emotions, we can try metta meditation, and that can really benefit us. It really helps us to replace negative emotions with their wholesome counterpart. Another thing we can and should do is we should cultivate mindfulness. Whenever we are mindful, we interrupt our natural mode of thinking. And when we do that, we can make an end with the negativity, at least for a moment. And when we notice that that is possible, we will be more inclined to meditate a little bit more in the future. And when we do that, we get better, and that can set in motion a negative feedback loop. Another thing we can do is spend a little bit time alone, especially when we have problems with validation needs. Many people are, well, pretty much fearful of spending time on their own, especially when they are extroverts, because they are used to compensate for the negativity by achieving a stronger impulse, a stronger good feeling from the social interaction. And another thing you can do is exercise, and exercise has the natural byproduct of reducing stress. Naturally, because when you exercise, you are in a mode of stress, at least bodily stress, and the body knows how to reduce stress after exercise. Thus, it is such a good tool for calming down a little bit, even though it might not feel like that initially. And lastly, you should practice self-acceptance. This is very much related to metta meditation, but much less structured. Most people have a much easier time following a cookbook-like approach, like in metta meditation, while self-acceptance is something that more or less results from metta, but can also be cultivated directly. And for the physical side of problems, we can try to exercise, and the benefits of that are manifold. I have a lot of videos on that one if you want to check. There's an entire playlist of the benefits of lifting weights, but all the benefits pretty much apply to any form of exercise. Lifting is just a very convenient way of achieving that. So, as mentioned, you can calm down because the exercise will automatically do that. You fix your low endurance. You fix the little exercise that is absolutely necessary for your health. And when you fix your health, your immune system will also get better. And you won't have much reason anymore for emotional eating. Because you only eat emotionally because you have to compensate for all the negative emotions. When you fix those causes for the negative emotions, then you won't have a reason to use your drug of choice, so to speak. In this case, the emotional eating. Every person has a different one. It's not always eating. It can be real drugs, it can be anything really. But the crux is always that you have to mask some negativity with a stronger sensual pleasure so it goes away for a time. The problem is, unless you fix the cause, it will always resurface in the future. The second thing you can do is to meditate, and this one cannot be overstated in importance. It cultivates the skill of mindfulness. Metta meditation, for example, is also a form of meditation. And when you are more mindful, you notice all those behaviors that lead you into trouble before they lead you into trouble, and not notice them by the results they bring. Thus, you can prevent a lot of damage that is going to happen to you, and meanwhile, you also cultivate a better emotional understanding for yourself, better understanding of your mind process in general, and thus you can have a much more structured approach when it comes to improving your mental health overall. Nobody apart you can do that for you. This is very important to realize. You have to fix your mental health. A therapist can help you with it. A therapist is something akin to outsourced mindfulness, so to speak. He can help you, point you towards where you have to go, but don't want to look, towards all the emotional baggage that you have. But still. And another thing you can do is practice self-love. Again, this is a form of metta meditation, but very unstructured. Many people prescribe doing that, and it is a very good thing. Because when you do not love yourself, in a sense, you can never love other people, for example. You can only see those qualities in others that you also see in yourself. And if you don't think that you deserve love, then you won't improve, because your subconscious will always sabotage you. So you pretty much have to cultivate behaviors that make you accept, or at least, love, or at least accept you more. And lastly, a healthy diet is so important. People overlook it all the time because they use eating and the sensual pleasure of tasting, for example, to mask much of their problems. Thus, they are used to drinking alcohol, to eating all kinds of junk food, because they have to use it to create a stronger impulse than the discomfort they feel right now. And a healthy diet, it does not feel too good at first. It feels good in the long run. It feels very good in the long run because, it avoids or reduces the causes for problems in the future. Thus, you benefit from it in the long run. And the reason for that is simply that you pretty much fulfill your evolutionary duty to eat the way our ancestors did. This is pretty much the only reasonable definition for health. And first, you have to remove the obstacles for personal development before you can focus on the things that just bring benefit in the future. The obstacles are of much greater significance than those things that are just net nice to have. You can compare it with debt and investing. You should first get rid of your debt because it is working against you, and then you should start investing. Okay, and that is pretty much it for today. Now, the most important points. Unlike gamers, overthinkers have a different set of problems, with a small overlap. Well, every person has a small overlap, because if we generalize far enough, we always end up at the very same problems, like delusion and negative emotions, craving, conditioning, and so forth. And they mainly suffer from negative emotions and chronic overthinking that they cannot stop because they haven't noticed yet that there is such a thing as mindfulness that has to be cultivated. For them, it is crucial to practice self-acceptance and metta toward themselves and learn to spend and enjoy time alone. Introverts, for example, might have to do a different thing, namely learn to also accept spending time in groups. It is always the things that come hard to you that you have to work on. It's a bit like lifting weights. You have to train those things that you are bad at, not those things that you are already good at. And meditation really helps to interrupt thinking processes. And when you can interrupt thinking, then there will be no negative emotion, for example, that arises, because emotions only arise with a cause. And the cause for an emotion is always a central input. And most of the central inputs for most people out there are thoughts, because we can think all the time. There are times where our eyes are closed and we have no images that come into our mind, but there is seldomly a moment without any thought. And most of the other problems will just vanish once the ultimate causes are taken care of. And this is a very important concept to understand. When the cause for something is fixed, then the symptoms will vanish on their own without you having to do anything. And it is crucial to correctly diagnose the ultimate problem, the ultimate cause of your problems, instead of wasting time with the proximate causes or symptoms. Whenever you try to fix a symptom, the problem will always come back. Okay, and this is pretty much it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, feel free to leave it a thumbs up so I know to produce more of this style of content in the future. However, if you feel like I missed something, please also let me know in the comment section so other people, and especially I, can avoid mistakes in the future and benefit from your wisdom. But until then, I wish you a pleasant day and goodbye. Oh, and subscribe to the YouTube channel.